there, Banditos. Welcome to the Monday episode of the Dollar Bin Bandits. I'm Mike Farah, and we are kicking the week off strong with Eli Schwab. Eli is the president, creative force, CEO, whatever other labels you want to give to him from Cosmic Lion Productions. And Cosmic Lion is really putting out a lot of the best comics in the indie scene nowadays. Eli comes from a background of music production, doing zines. He put together Cosmic Lion, or really took it off during the pandemic, and now is just publishing a spectacular line of comics. You definitely want to listen to all this conversation about how he got into this, what he's doing now. They have a couple of things coming up. One on February 8th, coming up very soon, Cosmic Lion Fest in LA. If you're in Los Angeles at Golden Apple Comics, please check that out. And then about a month later, March 15th in Connecticut, there is the Indie Comics Creator Con. So you definitely want to check out both of those events where Cosmic Lion will be. But for now, let's hear everything from Eli Schwab. Eli Schwab of Cosmic Lion Productions on the program. Eli, thanks for being here.
Good to be here. Good to be here. Thanks so much, man.
All right, we're going to hit the rewind button for our first question and ask you, how did you first discover comic books?
Oh man, I honestly don't think there was ever a time where it wasn't part of my life. It's funny. I just got off this Zoom. There was a Zoom for like Mad Magazine that had Art Spiegelman, and they were talking about this new book that came out. And so I was just watching it with my dad, and so it was my folks that got me into it, and it was really like through Mad Magazine from my dad's side, and my mom and her parents were both really big into like the newspaper comics, to the point where we would like read them out loud to each other and act them out and do voices. And her mom was big into it like that. And I just got into like Calvin and Hobbes super early because I was like an ornery, creative kid running around in the woods with my like stuffed animal. And like my mom got me into shit. Aaron Magruder's cartoon comic
The
that was turned,
Boondocks.
yeah, Boondocks. Like my mom was the first one that showed me Boondocks and all these great strips that I used to love, and so it's just kind of always been a thing. And then for my like our best family friends from Temple owned a bookstore, and so every year they would give me this like subscription where like every week or maybe every month, I can't remember, I would go in there and I was able to get a free comic. So it was just like
Nice.
the best thing. So I'd go in there and grab my like Turtles Archie, or my X-Men or Batman animated series cartoon or whatever it was. Like I was just so into it. So it kind of was always a thing. And I was and immediately with that came drawing and trying to create my own stories and stuff.
Do you remember? I mean, were those sort of like gift subscriptions or whatever, your sort of transition from comic strips to comic books, or were they always like side by side?
Well, I think it was Mad that did that. And I know that's not like the traditional, and it wasn't like I was a 5-year-old kid like digging on Will Elder and Harvey Kurtzman or anything like that. It was definitely like later Mads, and Don
Yeah.
Martin and Sergio Aragonis and stuff like that. But I do think it was probably the Ninja Turtles that was the first like comic book love. And I think I think I was even reading like what I now know as the Dan Slott run of Ren and Stimpy, and
Yeah.
stuff like that. Like, so it was kind of like the merging of things that I loved into the comics. But it was probably the Archie Turtles. That's some of the earliest comics I can remember me reading.
And were you a collector right off the bat, or did everything get beat up and thrown around? And
Oh, that's a good question. I feel like I had a collector's mentality because I kept everything. Like I had there until I was like in sixth grade, there was this drawer in the bathroom of like every toothbrush I ever had. So I don't know if that's like hyper fixation or if that's like the collector's mentality or something. But like I like I loved all these things, but I ripped them open and I immediately like took it apart and lost every like toy and every like little thing on Ninja Tree. I didn't keep that stuff, but and I don't think bag and boards came into play for a while. And I do have a lot of my original Turtles comics, and many of them are coverless. So I guess there was a collector's mentality in that I just like wanted to have these things, and I held them like they were my most prized possessions, but the condition didn't matter to me because I collected them, but I didn't realize like I could sell this Spawn #1 and put my kids through college, you know?
Right, right. It was sort of like this, the stories were, you felt like you owned the stories and you were collecting the stories, but you weren't like collecting them as,
Yeah,
physical objects that had to be
yeah.
kept pristine or what have you.
Yeah, and I think it was probably like the 90s era. Like, because when I moved from, because it was my parents' friend's bookstore, and then we moved into the paperback exchange, which was like a used bookstore, and they had back issue bins. And that's when I first pulled out this like Fantastic Four, where it was like all white cover with the Human Torch, and it was also like embossed his body. And I was
Oh
like, oh my
yeah.
God, I want this. And then I like looked at the price and it was like $10. And I was like, $10. Oh my God, I'll never be able to afford this, you know? And that's when I realized that like stuff could be worth something. And then what are those books behind the counter? And it was always Spawn #1 that was like the unattainable book, I feel like.
No longer. I
No
feel like
longer,
I
no.
mean, I feel like, yeah, yeah. I
I
mean,
found
maybe,
one in a
maybe. I
dollar
guess
bin.
Spawn #1 probably was less of a print run than some of the others, but it's still pretty available
Pretty
right
easy. I
now.
think it max $20 out of one of those cages.
So you talked about it a little bit that almost from the beginning of reading these comics that you were interested in making them, but tell me a little bit more about how that transition occurred or when you first thought about like, these are these are great things that I'm reading. I want to make them myself.
Yeah, man. I think like now not to immediately dive into a pitch or anything, but I my recent collection is called this Cosmic Lion Primer. And so I collected a lot of like my early art in it. And one of the first like collections of art of my own that I have is like these Ninja Turtle. Now I call them like they're like action figure pitches.
Okay.
Like Star
Yeah.
Trek Deep Space Nine turtle, nerd turtle. I don't. This one is always crazy to me. It's a shredder, but it's Blade Ketchup Head. Like what is going on with Blade Ketchup Head? Anyway, it's like MC Hammer Turtle,
Yeah. I like the
X-Men
hammer
Turtle,
reference.
yeah. So like I don't know. It's just I don't really know what started me drawing, but it was immediately with the love of comics that I immediately started drawing. And we used to draw these. This is like preschool. I remember we used to draw these like massive stickmen battles and like space action. And I started drawing Star Trek ships fighting and then Ninja Turtles. And then it was just like, and one of my first characters was called Jester Man, and that was because I just went to like a ski swap and found this cool Jester hat, and I wore it one night, and like I was like making my parents' friends laugh. And there's me at the fifth grade Halloween
Nice.
parade at school as my original character. And then here's me last year. I still have the shirt, I still have the hat. And I got Jim Mahfood to draw it. That's one of my earliest commissions there.
Nice.
But
I love
so
Jim.
then yeah, dude, he's one of the best. And my story of comic creation, I always have to mention Jim, just as he just got me going. That's a little later on in the chronology. But yeah, it just all kind of started, and then I just was always drawing. And my I always tell the story like my Sunday school teacher, Hebrew school teachers were like, we don't know how to teach this kid, and so they just started letting me draw, and then they would ask me questions while I was drawing, and I would answer correctly. And so they're like, okay, maybe if we let this kid draw, he's actually paying attention while he's drawing. And so
Right.
that just became like in school, in life. I'm always like, I kind of, it's probably ADD now that you think about it, but it's like, you need to, I need to be drawing to like actually take in information or something.
Yeah. It's almost like a fidget, except you're actually being productive
Yeah,
in terms of getting your focus together.
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Those things that you were showing me, the initial like mutant turtle sort of action figure designs or whatever,
Yeah.
reminds me of I got into comics. I went basically straight to actual, comic books, superhero stuff. But it was right when the trading cards were coming out too. And I remember that being almost as formative an experience, like collecting the original like Marvel cards and stuff like
Oh
that.
yeah. Yes.
And I would start drawing. What I would do, and I wish I still had them. I think I threw them out, but maybe I'll find them. Is I used to take like little post-it notes and do sort of the side view of superheroes. Like I
Oh,
found out
nice.
how to make like sort of a side face, with the couple of ovals or whatever, and then making the outline. And so I would
Yes.
just do all of the different heroes in them, and it was just almost like this trading card thing. It's like I can make with this basic shape all of these different characters. You know what I mean?
Yes. Yes.
I
It's
think,
such a cheat code when you're a kid too, when you find like kind of like a skeleton or something that you can draw. I did something
yeah,
with that too, where it was like a little swoop for like a quarter view. And
right.
even to this day, I still like kind of do a riff of it, but like then you can just be like, oh my God, I can put anything on this skeleton. Now I can draw, you know?
Yeah, yeah. So you definitely glommed on to like if you had to sort of say like there's story or there's the script and the art, you definitely were seemingly more taken at least early on with the art and just like making cool
Yeah.
images and things like that. When did you start to get into more of the storytelling part of it, like making these into like actual sequential stories with panels and things like that?
Well, okay. So with Jester Man, I did try to make like some comics. And again, it's all in here. I did Jester Man, the premiere adventure. I think it was like 94, 95. So like it was just on notebook paper. And it's just basically like one shots and two shots, no
Yeah, yeah.
backgrounds, of course. Um,
Well, you got the
well,
lines.
yeah, it's all action. There's like this
That's the
kind of
background.
like Deathstroke looking, almost
Right.
like Venomy or Grendel. Definitely didn't know Grendel at the time, but it looks like it. And so that was I started really early, like trying to actually do it. Now, you know, even with my later comics, I don't think I didn't ever really like think about craft, and I never really had like a super hard. I never took like a super hard look at that until much later on. Probably till like I started watching Cartoonist Kayfabe, and they really like started really breaking it down and showing you that there's all this stuff I never even it's that kind of thing that you take in subconsciously or
Right.
something, as like an admirer of this. You don't know why you're attracted to this next than this or whatever. So I started doing the sequentials, pretty early, but I still don't think I was like taken by the writer aspect of it all until I think it was like I started getting into like more novels and reading like Tom Robbins or Chuck Palahniuk or something like that before it was really like I allowed the writing to really like take me. It's crazy too. I think about this sometimes is that the movie Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind,
Yep.
there's a way that like Jim Carrey's character talks when he's addressing the audience, when it's almost like he's writing in a journal, and just the way that he addressed things, like another cold wet day here in Montauk or something, just like the way he like set the stage and set the scene and then started talking. That movie had a real a major impact on me, storytelling wise, I think, as well, and that's kind of like a random pull, but I've always been a huge Jim Carrey fan, and it's a person that I find his creative choices grew along with me. Like I was the perfect age to like watch In Living Color when I was really young,
Yeah.
and then go to see Ace Ventura in the theaters and like fall out of my seat laughing, and then The Mask, which destroyed me, and then I found it was comics, and then that blew my mind again, and then Dumb and Dumber. And then when Cable Guy came out, I was a little older and a little more acerbic, and everybody hated that movie but me. And kept bringing people to it, and everyone was like, "This sucks." I was like, "You're insane! This is the best movie." And then it was kept growing. And a Truman Show, and I started eating acid and thinking crazy. And then I was like, "Oh my God, are we breaking out of our, are they, and all these things." And so, and then that hit me in a time too when I was living in New York City by myself. I didn't know a lot of people. I was working. I was really like introspective and writing and thinking about all this stuff. So then that really affected me. And that was like kind of a time when I really kind of like became the storyteller that I am. That was around like 2003 or 4. And that's when I really started writing like every day, and drawing and making these journals. And what became my first like published work later on in around 2006 or 7 at these parties, it was photocopied pages from my journals, which was like drawings and just meandering writings. And so, that's I think when the actual storytelling came part of it.
Nice. Nice.
Okay. So,
Yeah. So where on the Jim Carrey trajectory did the idea for and then the execution of Cosmic Lion Productions come into play? Can we identify
can
a
we
movie?
equate it? I think he kind of fell off for a time there in the
He did.
mid 2000s when I didn't find a lot of inspiration in the number 23 or
Yeah,
what was the other one?
understandable.
Yeah,
There's
so
not a lot to find there.
oh, and then what was the other one? Mr. Popper's Penguins, that was even later. There was another one where he was like in prison. I can't remember. Anyway, so I think the
Until
Jim Carrey
his
timeline.
big comeback with Sonic.
Yeah, dude, he's huge in Sonic. Yeah, I guess maybe we diverged paths there around Eternal Sunshine. And that's when, I didn't need Jim anymore. I found my own voice. And I didn't need to, you know, say alrighty then, or visit the Louvre on one channel, or play Mortal Kombat with a friend in Vietnam. I didn't need those Jim quotes I had my own
The
quotes.
student becomes a master.
So wait, what was the question past the Jim Carrey
So
part?
yeah, that was a very oblique way of asking the origins of
Oh, where
Cosmic
did that
Lion.
cause? Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I was talking about those photocopied works. I moved to Burlington, Vermont, where I was working at a music venue, because at that point music kind of became more of my life. My drawings turned from Batman and Superman and the X-Men to, then it started to become like Jay and Silent Bob as I started smoking more weed, and then Jim Morrison, and then Fish
Yeah.
and Grateful Dead and stuff like that. And that really became a big part of my life, seeing a lot of concerts and live music. And so then after I tuned in and dropped out in college, I took 1 year where I only passed jazz band and percussion ensemble. I moved to New York, moved and then got a job there, which ended like almost 12 months to the calendar year. And then a friend from that first college was like, "You gotta come move to Burlington." And I was like, "Oh my God, that's where Fish started." And so I moved there, and I got a job at this club called Nectar's, which is where Fish started. And I started as a dishwasher. And then by the time I left there, I was production manager, kind of rode the way all the way up. And I started hosting these parties. And I kind of the like actual moment where I was like, I'm Cosmic Lion Productions is like hazy. I don't really know when that was, but it was in the process of me like creating this comic Monkey Lion, which was about an intergalactic Afro funk band on tour through the galaxy, as
Naturally.
well as like uh uh booking these nights and them being like, well, what do you want to call them? What do you want to do? And so I've I've recently kind of parsed out through doing interviews and trying to think about it myself. There was a poster for a band called Sound Tribe Sector 9 that I was really into. They go by just STS9 now. They're very cool, kind of like I don't know, dance.
Okay. I
mm,
was about to say progressive, so I was off.
Well, there's a bit of progressive in there. Sure, any of these like jam bands are kind of like that, but they're kind of like, if you were to like hear the sound of like the moon reflecting off the ocean, maybe.
Sure. I like it. Very evocative.
Yeah, it's amazing. I don't know. They're great. And there's a poster for them. There's this guy who do posters for them named Yamabushi Designs. And who I recently got in touch with after kind of figuring out that this is where it all started. And he's like, I do remember that. And thing called he does this thing called hyper collage where he like gets all these magazines and gets all these things. He cuts them out and he makes these like truly like hyper collages. So like I sent him a bunch of comics of which I sacrificed to the art gods, because like, he's cutting them up. He's
You know
cutting
what was going to
these.
happen.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
knew he was gonna cut them up, but it's like I gotta send this stuff to him. And so he's been recently making a couple designs for us, which I'm like super psyched about. And something I love to do in the world of Cosmic Lion is like throwback to earlier parts of my own creation and tributes to the start of it all and stuff like that. So and I love working with like in my first comic for Monkey Lion, I reached out to one of my first favorite creators, Jim Lawson, who did a lot of those Archie turtles. And
Right.
I just kind of was like, I just bought a comic off him, I think maybe through like a Kickstarter or something, and I was just like, "Can you give me some advice?" And he was the coolest dude of all time. He gave me all the advice I needed. I sent him my book, and then just out of the blue, he sent me a pinup of my character, which is now right over my shoulder right here. And so he did
Oh,
this pinup
nice.
of my character, and it's just like for free without asking. And now we do these conventions up in New Haven, Connecticut, called Indie Comics Creator Con IC3. And Jim's a guest there. I booked him for the first one, and then he booked him again. And so like now we're like running the same scene, and it's just like it's so cool to charge it back and to get it back. So jumping back to Yamabushi Designs, did the poster, and in that poster that I saw way back then, there was this lion's head with this like galactic, like kind of cosmic thing in the middle. Lions have always been a big thing, like a big totem in my family, like Judaism number one. My grandparents collected lions. They were in the Lions Club, which is like a community organization,
Yeah.
and so they were really big in that. And so they had all these lions, and they were always a thing. And then in my more hippie days, I definitely had dreadlocks. My Jufro really took to the locks in an amazing way. And then it became this like lion thing. Whereas I learned more about these religions, the Lion of Judah is this like amazing thing. So the lion was already like something I wanted to do, and my comic Monkey Lion, and then I wanted, and the comic idea was like fusing like the Last Waltz tour story kind of thing with like Star Trek or something, and with anthropomorphic characters. So taking all these things I love, and so then it just kind of made it perfect for Cosmic Lion. I started booking these nights, and then I would always, with each one, I would release these comics that I put out just at the comic at the live concerts there. So I would MC and I'd try to, do comedy, which was horrible. Comedy is very hard. Like those guys you love, they make it easy. You can't just
Yeah.
go up there and talk about why is a Triscuit 3 thinner than a biscuit, which is only 2 skits. It's like that's not funny to anyone but you. And that was like my joke. I was like my some of my stuff, So it's like,
I You needed to let it lay there for a while. Maybe you
yeah,
moved on too quickly. If
I
you let it
moved too
lay there for a
quickly.
couple seconds, then the
uh,
laughs would have been overwhelming.
I think so. So then that just became like my branding. And I found out early on that's really it's like super important to have your like brand,
Yeah.
quickly. And then once you have that, you can start running with it, and then people know you as that, whether it's like a tag, or it's something that it was your like AIM password, your AIM like name back in the day. And so everyone calls you like, you know, Stony Gamer 42 now or something, like,
Yeah.
but once you get that going, like it's easy to have people remember you and make memorable things that people still have on their bookshelf or whatever. So I started going for it pretty quickly after that all congealed. And then I started doing these Cosmic Lion nights, and I started booking like, these kind of like open mic things. Then it became like every Monday of the month. And then I did that for a few months and booked a few people. And it just kind of happened really quickly.
So at the beginning, I mean, it was interesting that you call it Cosmic Lion Productions, right? Because in the beginning, you were actually like producing events.
I
You know
was,
what I
yeah,
mean? Because
exactly,
what
yeah,
I'm looking at now is mostly like a comic book publisher, but
yes,
your productions, which kind of covers both like events and things IRL, as the kids say,
yeah,
and comics or whatever else you want to really produce because it covers so much stuff. So
yeah.
that's really interesting. And it's also like a show name. At least it started out as a show name
Well,
before you had, or did you
yeah.
always have ambitions that it would be like you would get other writers and artists and things like that under the sort of
Oh.
imprint, I guess.
No, I don't think that was my original ambitions, honestly. Like, and originally the full name was Cosmic Lion Productions Presents because I was another, like, someone that I really looked up to and loved to learn about is Bill Graham Productions Presents. Bill Graham being the Holocaust surviving young boy who made his way to San Francisco and got up with the San Francisco Mime Troupe and then opened up, the greatest venues of all time, the Fillmore East, the Fillmore West,
Yeah.
Winterland, these like, and then, worked with all these amazing artists. And that became like this world of comic book and music fusion, which is like everything I try to do in my thing, especially starting out. And so, but then everyone was like, Cosmic Lion Productions Presents is way too long for the flyer. It's too big for the calendar. And so then I just took it to productions. And then, I started doing podcasts. Cosmic Lion Radio is about 13 or 14 years old now. And um, it's about to 2 or 3 episodes a year at this point, if I'm lucky. But and I have aspirations to get back to that at some day. But anyway, so it's gone through all these permutations, but then it didn't become something that involved a bunch of other people until pretty much COVID, when confluence of things happened where um, I, with someone else, started the Cartoonist Kayfabe Ringside Seats Facebook group for the YouTube show Cartoonist Kayfabe. And then that just brought a lot of really like-minded, hardcore comics fans, creators, like people who like were into it. You know,
Hmm.
their favorite comic isn't Batman Hush by Jim Lee. It's like Chris Ware or
Yeah.
something crazy you've never heard of that you're gonna be like, oh my god, how did I not grow up with this, or how did I, you know? And so then once all those people started together and once COVID happened, everyone was stuck at home, and so we started doing these late night Zoom sessions where everyone was drawn and talking about comics. And I thought everyone was drinking and smoking, but I think I was the only one that was like getting trashed every night. But it was COVID, man. You
Yeah,
don't
man.
know.
No,
Anyway, so like
you weren't the only one.
yeah, okay. Thank you. But I guess on these Zooms I was saying I know everyone was out there boozing it up and making bread and stuff. But
Yeah. Yeah. The sourdough community definitely swelled.
yeah, it did. Much like the dough itself did. But yeah, no, so then we started doing all this stuff like that. And Ed had pitched something on the channel about image grand design. And so that became this thing where we're all like, okay, we're going to do that. We're doing that. We got the time right now. So then we all kind of just got together and it became, I luckily have this book rack right next to me. It became this huge book, which is like a flip book with Image Grand Disaster. And so, that got me together with all these amazing creators. And then after it ended, you know, everyone was like, I don't want to turn to my pages because then that'll mean this is ending. And I was like,
Over. Yeah.
dude, we can, like, let's do more. Let's do more. And so then that kind of became a thing where I was like, dude, I've got some means right now, and I was working for Apple and I was doing really well, and I was like, let's do this, let's do it. So then we started publishing some books, and you know, it kind of just snowballed from there to where Cosmic Lion Productions became much more than just Monkey Lion. Oh, also I did Wizard
Yeah.
magazine,
Yeah.
uh, which was with the cartoonist Kayfabe. Kind of the whole reason I started the group was because I had in other groups what I like to say, harness the power of these creative minds who, came around something. And so I did 2 issues of a Ninja Turtle zine, 6 issues of a Ween zine for the band Ween.
Yeah, I
And
know
then
Ween.
once, Ween, dude, they're great.
Yeah.
One of the best.
I have
And
I confess I haven't listened in a while, but I went through a hardcore Ween phase. I
really,
couldn't get anybody else to get into my hardcore Ween phase with
see,
me.
that's what these
But
things are
yeah.
like. They're those things that you think, other than Ninja Turtles, it's like these things that you think are like, I'm the only person that loves this. Like, and then you find someone else that loves it. You're like, oh my God, we're best friends. And then,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Everybody else is crazy. I'm
Yeah,
the
it's
sane
you
one. It's
guys.
like
Yeah.
this is ridiculous.
What
How
was
do you
your
not like
favorite
Ween?
album or song, or what were you listening to?
Uh, um, I liked I liked a lot of that. The one that sticks out in my mind, I don't know why, is the mollusk.
It's a good one.
Yeah, and I
That's my
maybe
ringtone on my
because all
phone.
the sea shanties sort of came back into vogue for a
Yes.
while, like last year
Yeah.
for like a month or something, or
Yes,
maybe
they
it's two
did.
years
My
ago.
niece was jamming that one.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And geez, what was the one? It was white, like an all
White
white
Pepper, the album.
cover, white pepper. Yeah,
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 it's a
I
good
dug
one.
that one too.
Yeah, they're great.
I mean, they're great.
Uh,
I just liked how every album was completely distinct from every other
completely.
album. Yeah,
Sometimes every song is a completely different genre, and like
right.
that's the glory of Ween and the glory of comics. In that, we did 6 issues, and I was thinking about a seventh issue, but then I noticed on Reddit there's a new swell of talk, and someone else launched a new Ween zine, so I'm gonna like kind of try to pass the mic over to these a new generation. But if anyone wants to check out the Ween zine, you can go to theweenzine.com, and all 6 issues are free to download.
Nice.
Anyway, so I knew you could harness the energy of these people, and so right after the channel started, I messaged Jim and Ed, and I was like, dude, I've got this idea. Like, we need to start a Facebook group, and dude, we'll make our own Wizard magazine. Like, I immediately was like, we have to do this because I knew, because they announced that that's what they're going to do with the channel, and I knew Ed really. I mean, I didn't know him personally. I knew him, I loved Hip Hop Family Tree and all that stuff. So I was so into it. And I tried to get him on Cosmic Line Radio, so we had like chatted a little bit, but that never ended up happening. But so I guess they kind of like he knew who I was tangentially, but then we kind of got to know each other a lot better over the course of the whole thing. And then once I told him I wanted to do Wizard, we started the group. And then once Wizard 1 like landed in their laps, they were just like, holy shit, dude. Like, I did not think, they called it the greatest zine of all time. And so, forever it's got you know, that thing, and it's forever in this TV show now that is like forever in the history of comics, and it's
Right.
forever like this thing. And it feels really good to have something that you make, and you don't always see and get to hear people read your book. You almost never do.
Yeah.
You sell them the book and that's it, you know? But to have two people like that, like geniuses of their craft, Jim and Ed, like look at this thing, and every single page they're going through it, and by the end they're like, we have the greatest community, this is the greatest scene of all time. It just felt amazing, and it put a battery in my back, and it put this fire under my ass, and I just wanted to help, you know and a lot of the people that I started to publish and that I got to know were from their like mailbag episodes, and they knew me from the group, and so we started these, we just started talking. So I'm forever indebted to Jim and Ed for that, for connecting me with this community of people, and helping me get my stuff started. So
Yeah.
I don't really remember what the question was, but we got there.
Well, you got to it, whatever it was. I'm not sure I remember what it was. Well, yeah, I mean, it's spectacular. You got that. You already had obviously Cosmic Lion Productions going, but like this took it to a new level, and you had that spark and that support from not only Jim and Ed and their show, but from the community that all of you guys sort of like, you know, grew together, which is
Yeah.
amazing. Did you start, I mean, after these, first projects, did you start getting like just pitches from people and they'd be like, I want my book coming out from Cosmic
Yeah.
Lion?
Yeah, I mean, I get a tons, and especially after we signed a deal with Diamond, which was like about 6 or 7 months ago, something we can get into later if we want to. But once that started happening and the international distribution started going, the pitches really picked up. And I have a submission form on my website. You can attach your comic just at cosmiclionproductions.com, scroll to the bottom. But I get a ton, and I try to respond to as many as I possibly can. Like there's some people that send, but okay, there's one group of dudes who are they're amazing. These comics are amazing, but they just keep sending me all these different comics. I'm like, dudes, like you guys need to start your own production company. You get and
Right.
like and like sometimes people send it to me and they're like, this is my first comic. This is the first time I've ever done anything. And I like to write back like you don't need me yet. You you you
Right.
you really should like experience with your first comic, like printing it yourself, putting your own money up, going out to the shows, meeting people, distributing it, sending it to people. Like there's a good way to do it. I can never say it's the right way, it's the best way, it's the only way. I would never say any of those things, but like for me and for a lot of people I've seen around me, like that seems to be the best way is to kind of take the jump yourself first and get out there and take your first new book to shows and buy a table and go to your local comic book shop and get it on the creators rack where it'll gather dust for a couple years, and let it, get that experience out yourself. And then if you make it through that and you get discouraged or whatever, or you get encouraged or people love it and then you're like, oh, dad, let's do the next one. Or if you get discouraged and it doesn't sell but a couple of your buddies like it, and the guy at the comic shop loves it, you're like, and you're still like, let's do the next one even after like feeling like you got beat down, then you're in it to do it. You're not just in it because you want your first book to be Spawn #1, and then you go crazy at Image or something. It pretty much never happens, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you got to get out there and you got to take that first test run down the hill yourself. I think. But if so a lot of times, but other times I get pitches and they're like, "Oh, I've been doing this for years. I have a trade ready and these fans, and I have this going on, and I think that the two of us together could go really well. Then I'm like, yeah, let's do this. We're at the right place, in the journey where if we team up, we can help each other out a lot. And
Yeah.
so that's kind of like what I'm looking for is like, people who are ready and who have weathered the journey for a while and are ready to like kick it.
Yeah. So there's a real sweet spot for you in terms of submissions, like people that maybe not, this isn't their first rodeo. They're sort of ready to go.
Right.
Is there I mean, do you have like, is there a Cosmic Lion kind of book
Don't
or
you say house
genre?
style. Don't say okay.
Not a house style at all, but I mean, like, will you take from
um,
any genre, like,
yeah, I'll take any
nonfiction
genre,
memoir, like
definitely.
total fantasy farce, whatever.
Yeah, I want because our slogan is comics of every kind for every mind. So I really want like a large swath of every kind of genre. I want different sizes of comics. I want little comic strip size books. I want squares. I want comic size, treasury edition, hardback, softback. Memoirs, fantasies. Like I want to be able to provide this thing of like when you walk up to the booth and you don't know what you want, you don't know what we do. I say, what do you read? What do you love? What movies do you love? Or what, and so people will give all this to me and I can go through it all in my head and I can be like, oh, dude, you'll love Space Knights or you'll love, Image Grant, you'll love whatever, because I've got these like 25 pitches, burned in my brain. That's another of my like, sales pitches. I'm like, they're like, oh my God, you got so many books. And I'm like, dude, I got 25 pitches memorized, test me. Which one you want to check out, and so, I'm able to like synthesize this information and then tell them the perfect book because I want everyone to be able to find something that they love at the booth or at Cosmic Lion website.
this may tie in, but and you've mentioned it a couple of times before, but like zines, right? Which is a, very kind of specific format. I probably more accessible in terms of like production and stuff like that. But tell
Definitely.
me a little bit more about, well, for those who don't know and are just used to like, highly produced comics, what a zine is, and what do you think the advantages of that format are?
Well, I mean, number one, you can just go to Kinko's, that's my dated reference. You go to
Yeah.
Kinko's
Staples.
FedEx office or whatever it is, right? Yeah. Or even your local library. And
Hmm.
you can and it's just like you're photocopying shit. And that's where I got started too, like again, now here we go back to Jim Mahfood, who taught me who showed me that comics can be this thing of like it's not Marvel X-Men 300 Gambit's Last Stand embossed glossy cover Joe Madureira, this amazing glowing art, like, I was so huge on Generation X. That was like my book. I was a teen and it was like right there. And Chris Bachalo's art like was everything in my adolescent days of drawing giant hands and feet and everything. So like I loved
You a
Bachalo's
Husk
art.
guy, Chamber? Who was your favorite?
Oh, dude, I actually was a big sync guy because I wanted
Okay.
to be. I like to have, I like to like morph style characters. So whoever you're around, you could kind of like synthesize that power and use it back. And yeah, skin was weird. I was like, nah, dude. When
That's
the
creepy. Yeah.
Generation X, dude, I watched the Generation X TV show when it
I've
came
never seen it. I
out.
remember it coming out, but I
I
never saw.
like it. I like it.
Yeah.
Matt Frewer's in it, and oh my God, the lady
Greenlight.
from Aspen Extreme plays Emma Frost. I don't know if So I love that movie. Aspen Extreme is so good. Dexter
Nice.
Rutecki, whatever. And so I love that Generation X. And so then, as I was reading that comic, here comes the Generation X Underground special, and that's Jim Mahfood, and that just like skewed my timeline into the alternate,
Yeah.
underground Eli, and so like then it was like, oh my God, comics can be about friends playing Atari. It can be about dreams. It can be about any of these little crazy things. You can just, and then I like had to find everything I could of Mahfood, which wasn't easy at that point. I found stupid comics like in a back issue bin, and I'm from a really small town in well, it used to be Maryland's Queen City, but Cumberland,
Hmm.
Maryland. It's pretty small, and it's like 2 hours from DC, Baltimore, and so I didn't have a lot of access to like underground zines or much comic culture. There wasn't really anything um, that I knew of or I had access to. So I found this stuff in other towns, and once I found Mahfood, then it was like a little later, and I went to Jay and Silent Bob's Secret Stash in New Jersey because I had
Hmm.
cousins in New York, and I was like, "We gotta go, we gotta go." So this was the first original location, and I found, or maybe it was anyway, but I found. I said, "Do you have any Jim Food stuff?" And so they showed me his 40 ounce comics mini comic zine,
Right.
and that became my like this like holy grail, not and like Rosetta Stone of like what a zine is, because now I see that it's just a red piece of construction paper with white pieces of printer paper photocopied inside of it, and he just stapled the middle and folded it over. Now I could take it apart and I could see like how he did it, and so now I was like, oh my God, I can make my own comics. And so then that became a thing of where now I started doing that, and I started going to Kinko's FedEx, and I had this like bank bag, like a if you're going to do the drop at a restaurant, you have like the leathery kind of bank
Oh,
bag,
right. Yeah.
and
Like sort of a satchel
like
kind
a
of.
money satchel, yeah.
Yeah.
So and
Yeah.
I had that full of all these drawings where it would be like post-it notes, or when I was bartending, all the like tickets you
Uh,
would send back to the kitchen, I would draw on all those, or printer or register tape, or it was just full of all this bullshit, and so I would just organize it on the photocopier and print one, and then print it again, and then cut them, and then collate, and you did all this work because there was no Photoshop. I mean, there was Photoshop, but like I didn't have
right.
Photoshop, and I didn't have InDesign, I didn't have any of that. So and then at first I couldn't even figure out how to do two-sided photocopies because you're not asking the clerk how to do stuff. You're just, I gotta figure
Yeah.
this out. So
That's
so then
embarrassing.
yeah, I know. So then the first comic I did, like I did in that motion at FedEx Kinko's, only had one side printed on
Right.
it. But then quickly I must have asked or something like that because I was like, I gotta have two sides. I'm an idiot if I don't have two sides. So then that just became a thing. And I don't even know. I didn't even do half size pages yet because I don't think I figured out how to do that yet. Like maybe do my page, shrink it down, then lay it out. So I had 8.5 by 11, and I didn't even like, it's all learning curve. I wasn't then like, what's double 8.5 by 11? Then I could do 11 by 17 and have like a cover. I didn't think any of that stuff, so it was just like stapled, 8.5 by 11 stack of papers. So, even though I had that, it took me a while still until I figured out how to do that. And then after doing like all the ones in Vermont, I yada yada yada, I found myself in Florida and Cosmic Lion Productions came back and then I started doing a lot more like zine stuff and then I would start taking those to cons or all along the way during all this, I would send stuff to Jim Mahfood all the time. And he would send me emails back or send me his comics or I kept trying to book him at Nectar's for like a live art jam and he's like, "Well, when people book me, they buy my flights and they put me up." And I'm like, "Ah, shit, man, I don't have that money." He's like, I know, but like this is like, so that if you're going to do this, this is what you need to offer and to be and
Right.
then so I started like, so he's been an amazing like hero, teacher, friend, we moved out
Mentor.
to mentor. Yeah, so always all love to Mahfood, who is one of the greatest dudes I know. And so, he taught me about the zine culture. And then as I started growing and I just started, it wasn't even until almost recently where I found that there's, things like zine fairs or, that there's a zine for like literally every single minuscule thing that you can possibly think of.
Right.
Like, I was on a board that was like deciding a comic, like a comic, the Make More Comics Arts grant. It's something else that came out of the Ringside Seats group, and it gives like a couple $1,000s to comic creators, and everyone sends in books and stuff. And so I was judging that, and someone did a zine about how to sharpen knives and what knives to use to cut things. And so I just and you keep all these submissions. So I put that in with my cookbooks, in the kitchen. So it's like zines have everything. It's just like if you think your nerdery is so minute, or it's like your nerdery is like this cross with this cross with this, I guarantee you there's a zine out there.
Yeah.
Now I've never seen a zine that I disagreed with until I saw this one because a lot of times people who are out of comics, they don't know how to pronounce the word Zine. They think Zine immediately.
Zine. Yeah, like
Because I
yeah.
guess technically it needs the little apostrophe that it's the end of magazine. So
Right.
it's like zine. So people say Zine, and then I saw Star Trek zine for Deep Space Nine. It was called Deep Space Zine. And I'm like, you can't. Are
Hmm.
you serious? Like, even if it's maybe it's like a internet joke that I missed the beginning of. Like, I'll give that leeway,
Right.
but also the insides were awesome. But that title, I was like, come on, bros and sisters.
Amateur.
Ah, no, the pronunciation.
Although
I
the
don't
whole
know.
thing about zines is that they're amateur. So
That's true. And but then again, it's like I don't know. Everything when it comes to zines is nebulous, and that I think is also their glory. There is no rule to it. Could be
right.
black and white. Could be color. It could be stapled pieces of super nice paper. It doesn't have to be printer paper, or it could be So the single fact that zines are like the punk rock DIY thing
Yeah.
means that in essence, there are no rules for it. So you can do whatever you want. So if someone's like, that's not a zine, you can be like, yeah, it is. And who are, like, yes, it is. It's my fucking zine.
Right.
So it can
And
be
it's the
anything.
lowest barrier for entry, right? Like
There's no barrier.
literally anyone can do it. Like everyone, even the people that are submitting to you and you're being like, well, this is your first thing to go do it yourself. Like, even if you can't do a Kickstarter or your Kickstarter doesn't get your like funding that it needs, it's like just do it as a zine. It's
Yeah.
there.
You can go to FedEx office now and they'll help you lay it out. You can use the computers there. They'll print out, like say you got $100, they might do 10. So you get 10 printed out, and then you take one to your comic shop, you take one to the, where you play Magic, or you take it wherever else, and you can hand them out, and then people like it, and then it gets around, and you never know where it's gonna get.
Yeah.
That, the Peter Laird worked on this small newspaper called Scat, and he didn't think it was anything that he was gonna do, and it was laying on a bus, and Kevin Eastman sat on a bus and picked it up. And if it wasn't for that, someone leaving that magazine, that newspaper on a bus or on the train or whatever it was, we wouldn't have Ninja Turtles. You never know what your little thing, like you made 10, but you left one at the library or left one at comic shop or where you get your haircut. Someone comes in there and like, oh my God, this is everything I've ever been looking for. And I always thought I was the only one. And now there's two of you doing it. And
Yeah.
so you guys can go out and make something even better. And you never know what's going to happen.
Exciting stuff.
Dude.
So let's kind of close out with what is coming down the pike for you in 2025 and Cosmic Lion Productions. Like, what can we look forward to? What are you getting back into?
Oh man, there's a whole line of new Cosmic Lion books. I put in an order, excuse me, of like about 15 books with my overseas printer to try to beat the tariffs. And
Hmm,
so, I've seen posts of people talking about it. What do the tariffs mean to
good
indie
strategy.
producers? And so, luckily a lot of people had their stuff done and ready. So we put all these books in, and so they're hopefully all going to hit like around or get back to me like around March-ish. We have Indie Comics Creator Con, of which I'm kind of like a founding member, sort of, you know, I don't know what my title is, but Matt Sardo started it. And, we kind of came on board. I came on board right at the start, kind of to like help, you know, get indie creators and do some booking and stuff like that. And so that has become a huge thing. There's a big investment from comic art fans with them now and Dark Horse and stuff. So this is going to be a big con that's coming up. And this year we have like kind of like Heroes Con has Indie Island. We have Cosmic Lion Island, Lion Island.
Land. Okay,
So
got it.
for those Southern people out there, of which Maryland is the northernmost Southern state. So my accent is confusing.
Hmm.
But
I always thought it was Virginia.
that's south of us though. Remember,
I
that's
know,
north of
but I
us.
always thought that was the
Oh,
most
because
northern
yeah,
southern state.
I only know that fact
I'll
because
give you Maryland. I
all
mean,
right.
what do I know?
I was doing some promotion for like a music company and they listed Maryland as a southern state and I was like, "Is it? I didn't know that." But it's technically, I don't know. Anyway, so uh Indie Comics Creator Con is a big con that we're doing March 15th weekend in New Haven, Connecticut. So that's going to be a really big one. If you're in the LA area, February 8th, we're doing Cosmic Lion Fest at Golden Apple Comics, which is a super legendary comic shop here.
Yeah.
I know that this podcast lives forever, so only about a month worth left of that promotion. But you guys, other in the future, you can check out photos online. They'll be as legendary as the photos there of Rob Liefeld and Easy E from the Youngblood release.
There you go. I mean, now
And
now now it's part of the historical record, and people can go
exactly,
back and like sync
they'd
up.
be like, "This is what he was talking about." But another thing I'm trying to do also is kind of get more of these artists that inspired me, some that aren't getting as much shine anymore, or maybe people are like, "Oh, where are they?" And that start. I mean, I originally wanted it to start with Bernie Moreau. We were talking a lot and have been talking over the past couple years, 4 or 5 years, and I kept trying to get something going with Bernie, and unfortunately, we lost him a little while ago,
Yeah.
last year. Um, of which we're doing a fundraiser, and that's a terrible place to have a sales segue, but I did a zine for Bernie just because I love his work and
Yeah.
I want more people to set eyes upon this amazing work he's done. So at cosmiclionproductions.com, we have a Bernie zine that's really thick and amazing. And all proceeds from that are going to the Hero Initiative, someone that I think something that could have helped him if he could have reached out. And I think can help a lot of other people in the future. So we're trying to help Hero Initiative. And so on a more positive note, moving forward, we're working with Matt Howarth. We have 4 books out with Matt Howarth now. All 3 of them are a series of books that he wrote in the 90s and were never released and are coming out now. We have a 4th all new book that he did for me called A Slice of Spy that is in previews right now, as well as Termite Mountain 1 through 3. They're going to probably go up on my website in a little bit. We have a new book that's an old book of his that he drew and wrote. It was written by Stuart Moore. I believe they worked together on Starcrossed for Helix. And so that's going to be cool. We're working with, haven't really announced this yet, but AC Farley is one of my favorite Ninja Turtles artists. And we've been working together a little bit with him to try to get an art book, a kind of autobiography out of Craig Farley there. So that's something to look forward to in the future. That's kind of a exclusive for the Dollar Bin Bandits, the Banditos out there. Um,
Nice.
and there's just a lot more stuff like that kind of coming down the pike. The indie artists mixed with the old creators. We're trying to do a kind of like heavy metal deadline esque uh, kind of like music mag and fantasy horror sci-fi anthology. There's just like always new things percolating, like the proverbial fish in the percolator. There's always something percolating.
Nice. And we
Yeah,
can all follow all the goings on at cosmiclionproductions.com.
that's right. Cosmic Lion Productions on Instagram, Cosmic Lion on Blue Sky now. And I've got two active podcasts right now. The Grendel cast, The Devil
Yeah.
in Detail, which I do with Ben Grandoff, and it's the official Grendel podcast because we're fully sanctioned by Matt Wagner, who's been on the show many times. He's a friend now at this point, which is not something I expected with the podcast. But and we've had Brendan Wagner, Diana Schutz, we've had Teddy Christensen, Tim Sale, Joe Matt, all these guys. And one of our greatest episodes is it's Matt, Diana Schutz, Tim Sale, and Teddy Christensen all talking about the book that Diana wrote. So there's just amazing episodes of that with some of the greatest creators of all time on the Grendel cast. I call it for short, The Devil in Detail, available wherever you get your podcasts, as well as video style on YouTube. And Cosmic Lion Radio is still kicking out there um, on Apple Podcasts and other podcatchers. It's kind of like a public radio music and news and segments and interviews and stuff like that, and kind of became a thing where we interview people and then build a mixtape. And that's where I first met Matt, and I've had Mike Allred on there. And you know people from all over the place, like Hunter Thompson's road manager, a sound guy that worked with Bootsy Collins and Frank
Nice.
Zappa. And so I try to stray out into the world a little bit. A couple different musicians and comic people, Kevin Eastman and stuff. So I still think there's some good stuff on there. It's not all A+ audio quality, because a lot of the interviews I plugged my iPhone into like a thing, or just put the phone next to a mic back before we had Zoom and Nessie Blues like we both have.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, those are the zines of audio
Exactly.
content, right?
Nice. Well put. Well put.
Hey, everybody, welcome back. I love talking to Eli. He has a great perspective on the comics industry. He is putting out a lot of amazing work from newcomers, from veterans, that is really just kind of off the beaten path, something a little different for you coming from Cosmic Lions. Please check out those events if you're in LA on the 8th of February this month. If you're in Connecticut, March 15th, Indie Comics Creator Con. Um, It'll be a good time. I know it because Eli's doing it. So everybody check out Cosmic Lion Productions. Thank you, Eli, for being on the show. Check out all of his podcasts as well. And we're going to keep the train rolling with another couple episodes this week. So please remember to rate, review, and subscribe. And we'll see you next issue.